There are plenty of human problems that we all are more or less facing. There is the problem of saying things, then acting the other way around, which causes pain for those who believed the things that have been said. There is the problem of mistrust, pettiness, comparison, envy, hatred, discrimination, bullying, cyberbullying, divisions, and so on. And there is now also the issue regarding the fact that the percentage of intelligence that is not human is rapidly increasing, while the usage of our own intelligence seems to decline. Also due to the inclination many of us have to shape our digitalness, which is constructed on our identification with our digital selves and our reliance to our digital self-esteem, into the extension of us, up to the point where we will probably become the lazy extension of it. Then there are other categories of issues, which are more private, intrinsic in our psychological and emotional experience, such as loneliness, depression, fears, sadness, desperation, desolation, a kind of pointless sense of life, and all the rest of that long, long list. And there are more global problems too, like climate changes, geopolitical mutations, fake news, new forms of nationalism, angry but semi-blind types of populism, easy proneness to believing untrue things, and all the rest of that. All these problems are the inescapable facts of us and implicit components of our lives. The human journey throughout life and the future seems to be a road paved inwardly and outwardly with so many problems we have to face directly or not every day, regardless of genders, age, sexes, positions, mindsets, nationalities, races, and so on. This is a fact. It is not a complaint or something aimed to cling to some kind of pessimistic and depressing viewpoint. It is the plain fact of our own battered human reality. You can go to India, for instance, taking shelter in some ashram. You can cling to Jesus, begging for salvation, perhaps. You can rely to the many stores of spiritual healing, awakening, and all of that package of fanciful illusions. Or you can embrace the way of polarization, sticking to your identitarian tattoos, Instagramming your existence, or just disappearing into the, let's say, chemical heaven of drugs. All that won't make you escape from reality, because reality cannot be escaped. Now, unless we wish to blindly hug our personal marriage with our kinds of subjective or collective escapism, diving into this matter summons a radical question, which is, how are we really dealing with such problems? Looking at the way we deal, generically speaking, with these problems, when it is not about escapism, of course, we usually face such problems superficially, clinging to some easy answers, conforming to some rhetorical cliches, holding some position or adhering to some authorities, or wearing the mask of a certain intellectual thickness, or some spiritual illusions. But we never go beyond the psychosocial surface. So we are asking why. We talk about change, for instance. We love that word, change. Still nothing changes. Aside from some maybe marginal modifications of the original models of thinking we carried throughout the years of our life. Now, considering our problems do not only exist on their mere surface, then why are we sticking to the surface, which is where easy but insufficient answers spring from? How futile it is, for instance, to react to the matter of unhappiness, using this as an example, or fear, with the proneness to find something capable of making us laugh, or distracted perhaps. And since that does not last long usually, one has to cling to a trigger after another, over and over and over. So, as a legitimate inquiry, there is a question we usually don't propose, nor think about, which is almost tragicomic, I will say, because the question is, why do we have so many problems, really? Why do human beings have so many problems? Psychological problems, practical problems, many problems. Oh yes, we know, the matter of solutions is an important one, and everybody loves to talk about solutions, not about problems, because that is somehow depressing. That is something that provides kind of sense of incapacitating powerlessness. Still we have many problems, despite we tend to focus on solutions. Therefore, again, the question is there a decent understanding of the structure of such problems? Do we have an in-depth comprehension of it? Or are we primarily sticking to the interpretations modeled by the mindsets we carry and by the authorities of what we have been told and accepted eventually, especially about the mental turmoils, confusions and fogs? It is pleasurable to talk about human solutions, indeed. But what are such solutions, really? What are those solutions all about in most cases? What, getting high, maybe? More layers of surfaces? Some kind of rat race toward the acquisition of happiness? The clinging to our digital selves, perhaps? Maybe ideas of success and becoming someone. Addition to old or new intellectual currents of thought or political and spiritual ideologies. All that can perhaps provide some kind of pleasure, some sense of identity, some cognitive place where to be, where to belong, some level of psychological security, some kind of mental shelter and identity position, but it won't fertilize any healthy and critical understanding of the very roots of the problems. Take racism, for instance. We talk a lot about racism these days, which is probably good, but we are prone to believe that teaching the children to respect other races or minorities is the right way to be in order to prevent the problem of discrimination, not only racism. Problem is that this so-called teaching, due to its common superficial nature and delivery, is in itself a problem which summons indeed future problems, because teaching that need to respect actually implies, paradoxically enough, the indirect teaching of racism, discrimination, inequalities and injustice via surreptitious manners and brain tricks, instead of diving seriously, multilogically and critically into the inquiry regarding the very reasons why people discriminate. In other words, it is wise to take into account how teaching or preaching respect does not annihilate the germ meme of discrimination, because it feeds a sense of identitarian opposite, and every opposite contains the inevitable fabrication of toxicity of its opposite. The whole matter of psychological pain, griefs, and sorrow is rather complicated, also because it is something we come across with during childhood, throughout the childhood, and then we carry on, often even accept. Aren't we all more or less consciously or not broken up after all? As well, we have stored so many hurts. Isn't it true that probably the many of us carry more psychological scars than the psychological one we collected through our life experience? That is a reality. It's not my personal opinion. So please do not break down, do not grieve if you can. This is not a kind of descent into the abyss of the human desolation. So please preserve your supplies of humor, which is very important, by the way. But nevertheless, let's go seriously into this matter, into this study, this investigation and understanding. This is more, let's say, a kind of fly over the surface of the human reality, like mapping it, to then land and carefully inquire. We are merely trying to think carefully and profoundly about these things. And the proposal is to dive deep into the cognitive architecture of our problems and the premises they are made of, before thinking about and even planning possible solutions. Fundamentally, there are practical problems, the money, the technicalities, the bureaucracy, the health issues, and so on, for example. And there are psychological problems, which are often far more complicated and harder to decode than the practicalities. Taking how many of us, for instance, need, even desperately sometimes, just a little support. Or taking the matter of love as another example. Craving, wanting love, or to be loved. All that summons problems, doesn't it? What if all that craving, striving, clinging, searching, seeking, and so on gets observed with a trained thinking, not conditioned by thoughts? What about that? And is that possible at all? I mean, can one observe his or her own striving, for example, without the interference of thoughts and interpretations? Please, this is not a yes or not kind of trivial game. Nor is it something wayward on intellectual speculations. Neither it is a rant of confabulations and overthinking stuff. Enter these questions with critical intelligence. So for now, let's not go into the matter of solutions for a while, despite solutions are important and necessary, of course. But let's go, we will go into that later on. Now, is it possible to observe the structure of our craving, our striving, our clinging, our searching, our seeking, thinking about all that and its movements, dynamics and habits, without the interference of thoughts, opinions, mindsets, ideas, interpretations, and all that came and comes from what we have been told? Is this possible? So for now, let's stick to this. And to be continued.